I matched with a succubus on Tinder by JTB685. I've almost given up on love. After 5 years of pointless scrolling, it was a time to face the fact. Girls just weren't interested in nice guys like me. But then a notification popped up one morning. It's a match! Irene had soft eyes and curly brown hair that fell above her shoulders. Her smile was shy but just a hint of mischief. I thought long and hard about my opening line. It had to both strike the proper tone and make her feel special. Hi, you seem interesting, like someone I'd like to know better. Not like all the other girls on here. She replied a few minutes later. That's so sweet of you to say. You seem pretty interesting yourself. Do you live alone? After a flirtatious back and forth, I asked her out to dinner. I'd love to, but I'm working late. I'll be so hungry when my shift ends. If only I knew a handsome gentleman that could cook. I waited for almost a full minute before replying so as not to appear desperate. Why don't you come over to my place tonight? I'm a great cook. Irene replied, sounds good. Boom, just like that I had a date. I bought a mop and a vacuum to clean the apartment with and lit a few candles to set the mood. Irene messaged about 10 p.m. I'm outside. She was early. There was no time for a shower and I couldn't find a single can of deodorant. Luckily I'd bathed 3 days earlier, crisis averted. At the CD player, I put on the Avatar: The Last Airbender original soundtrack, then dimmed the lights. I made my way to the front door, stopping at the mirror to straighten my tie, then turned the handle. Whenever I saw Irene, my heart skipped a beat. Her gray-green eyes glimmered like emeralds, and her intoxicating aroma reminded me of a freshly opened pack of Pokemon cards. She was wrapped in multiple layers of clothing, barely showing any skin at all, a rare virtue in a Western woman. Aren't you going to invite me in? She said eventually. Her voice was confident yet somehow submissive. I swept a hand across my apartment and tipped my fedora. Lady. Irene kept her coat on as I guided her towards the dining room. She took a seat at my secret lab Omega 2020 series gaming chair while I sat facing her on a wooden one that previous owners left behind when they moved out. I asked Irene about her work, her family, and her sexual history. She gave short, curt answers to all of my questions. Periodically, her stomach grumbled. It was rather unladylike, although I held my tongue. She surveyed the room. Are we alone? Yep, I smiled. It's just the two of us. Her eyes focused on mine. Perfect. The way she said it sent my heart rate soaring at one point. I excused myself to begin preparing the meal. Then we resumed chatting as we talked. Irene popped her head using her arm and leaned forward seductively. What's that thing? With a gloved hand, she gestured past my left shoulder towards a katana I had mounted across the wall. Oh, it's a Japanese sword crafted by a master smith in Yokohama, I said. A few minutes later, right as I was in the middle of explaining Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life, the microwave dinged. Excuse me. I served Irene's portion first, bowing as I laid it before her. Bon appetit. The Hot Pockets turned out sweet and delectable. A thick celebration of cheese, meat, and vegetables. But while I scoffed mine down, Irene only eyed her plate with disdain. I swallowed a mouthful. Is everything okay? She bit her bottom lip and nodded as her stomach grumbled even louder than before. I shrugged and continued eating. By the time I was finished, she'd hardly taken a single bite. What's the matter? I asked, a tone of concern in my voice. She rubbed her belly. I'm not in the mood for... Her voice trailed off as she prodded the Hot Pocket with her fork. I'm in the mood for something else. She stood, circled the computer desk, and gently pressed a finger against my lips. Before I knew it, we were kissing. Irene swung over onto my lap. Our tongues acted in perfect synchronization like Goku and Vegeta performing the fusion dance. Anticipation swelled beneath my cargo shorts. I'd been looking forward to this moment for 36 years. Irene bit my bottom lip hard. I grimaced with pain and pulled back. Then a trickle of blood ran down my chin. She gave a nasty smile, showing a mouth full of curved teeth, and licked her lips with a forked tongue. You taste good. Irene stood and began undressing. For a moment it appeared as though things were looking up. Although her monstrous teeth were repulsive, I still considered Irene attractive. But then, before my horrified eyes, her clothes fell to the ground. From the neck down, Irene's body was covered with translucent skin, grotesquely colored, stretched taut over well-defined bones. Bat-like wings spanning no less than thrice the width of her body expanded. Then she pulled off her gloves, revealing long, sharp claws. A set of small, yet perfectly shaped, breasts sat proudly atop her chest. My knees trembled as Irene leaned in close. Before I could react, her cold claw wrapped around my neck and lifted me from my chair, pinning me against the wall. I made a faint rasp and tried to pry her fingers off my neck. Irene's tongue probed my face as she moaned, with what I assumed to be feminine delight. The edges of my vision blurred and my temples started throbbing. Desperately, I felt along the wall, probing for something, anything that could help. My left hand touched something metal. The katana! In one smooth motion, I grabbed it off the wall and angled it downward. The sheath fell to the floor. Irene's jaw closed around my neck, puncturing the flesh. I screamed, then twisted the blade around and thrust it into her back, right between the shoulder blades. She made a sudden cry of pain and relinquished her grasp. Irene whirled around, shrieking. The blade tore a strip of flesh as I ripped it out. Before I could strike a second time, Irene flapped her wings. The left one collided with my chest, knocking me clean across the table. The jolt of the impact made me groan. Red lines trickled down my neck, stemming from the point where Irene bit me. I scrambled back to my feet, katana in hand. Irene bared her fangs. The computer desk stood between us. "Why you?" she said with fury. Green blood blossomed from her back. I took several short breaths. "What the fuck is going on here?" I stammered. "Isn't it obvious?" A horrible grin broke out on Irene's face. The end of the blade wobbled in my unsteady hand. She circled to my right. I turned to follow, keeping the desk between us. "I'm here to eat you. I stalk dating sites for horny losers like you and then gobble them up." Irene burst forward, a desperate flail of my blade sent her whining back. I gulped. "Gobble up? Just what the hell are you? Explain yourself." Irene leaned forward. "It doesn't matter what I am. All that matters is what you are." "Oh?" I said, then gulped. "And what is that?" She grinned. "A fat 36-year-old virgin who's about to be dinner." "Like hell I'm about to be dinner," I shouted. I tried to slash, but Irene jerked back just out of reach, and the silver blade cut only air. She took another swipe at me. I backed up a step. She swiped again and again, finding only the space above the desk. I held my breath and steadied my arms. All I had to do was watch my opponent for an opening. Each time Irene got ready to strike, her muscles tensed. That was it. The next time her muscles contracted, a delicate stroke sent her fingers flying through the air. She growled like a wounded orc and staggered back. While Irene clutched her hand and squealed, I slipped around the desk ready to deliver the finishing blow. Her eyes focused on me without murderous intent. With her uninjured hand, Irene lashed out, forcing me backward. I answered to her attack with strikes of my own. Once, twice, a testing. There was a loud whoosh. Irene spread her wings and flew forward. "No!" I screamed, swinging wildly. The blade cut across her stomach. Anguished wails followed. Irene hit me with a meaty thump. Then we both spilled onto the floor. The katana landed between us. We both grabbed for it at the exact same moment, me getting to it first. I rose. Irene looked up at me, my blade poised, calm and ready. Green liquid pumped out of the deep wound in her stomach. She clutched it with both hands, jaw clenched. She was defeated. We both knew it. Her strength was no match for my prowess. Those countless hours cutting open bottles of Mountain Dew in my mom's backyard had not been in vain. Irene stumbled to her feet, glistening green blood and ribbons of taut flesh dangled from where my strikes had connected. I held the katana firm with both hands. Irene's wings collapsed into her back. Then she began pulling on her clothes. Still only half dressed, she made her way towards the door. There she looked back towards me with a look of utter disdain. I chuckled in response. The door crashed shut behind her. In the bathroom, I unrolled toilet paper and dabbed my wound. I stared at my reflection with pure disbelief. What were the odds my first ever date would turn out to be a hideous monster? It had undoubtedly been the second worst date of my entire life. On the counter, my phone chimed. It's a match. Excitement swelled in my stomach. The girl I matched with, Alice, was even more beautiful than Irene. Her skin was like a mocha cappuccino. Very exotic, very sexy. Sitting down to feast on the still warm Hot Pockets Irene had foregone, I sent Alice a message. "Hi, you seem interesting. Like someone I'd like to get to know better. Not like all the other girls on here." If I'd known further terrors lay ahead, I would have uninstalled the app right then and there. But like a fool, I didn't. After all, what were the odds of something like that happening again?